You really think this will be her final birthday? I consider the words from outside. I consult them, try them on. I hear 1,000 disconnected female voices come from the heavens that seem to be singing, wailing, crying. Then a deep-throated rumble of a voice that comes from the depths. The London sun dips behind the clouds and throws the kitchen into half-light. The voices merge with a gong, and I catch a glimpse of long grasses, reeds by the lake, a rising mist across it. Certain. His head drops, and he does not reply but sits for such a long time. I nibble on my top lip with my lower teeth. Conrad holds my hand in a bird hide some 10 miles from Glastonbury. We look over the lake and the strip window makes the scene appear like a dream. He holds my hand there and I feel it here. He walks across a beach in Ireland. He sips coffee, listens to jazz. He torments himself with shadow puppets and paper cutouts of imaginary ghosts. Matthew sobs loudly. I do not move but jut my jaw forwards and squeeze my lips into my mouth before I can squirm. He shakes his head softly, his palms finally to the sky. He plants his face into them. I'm sorry. When he does not speak or even raise his head, I look out of the window. The cat wants to get in. She meows loudly. Use your flap, you batty old thing. Your flap. Matthew looks up, half smiling. Sorry, bad timing. He shakes his head, laughs a little. It feels like it's my fault. Oh yes, Death, it's your fault. Shut up. We haven't really spoken. No. No? Not really. Well, no. I know. She said. I nod. I haven't spoken to her, not properly, for 4 years and 2 months. It can't be. No, it is. She remembers that. He nods. Maybe it is my fault. When Dad died, I blamed her. Then I remembered how much I hated him anyway. You were tiny. How could you hate him? You were tiny. He kept leaving. To go to war. Well, so? When you're tiny, you don't consider those things, unless you're a genius like you, Matt. Sorry. I used to be so angry about war, about injustice, inequality. I used to get angry about what the world did to Grandma and Grandpa, what I thought it did, to Cyprus, to Greece. I wouldn't eat at the Turkish restaurants, and I love chicken to hawk. It's basically my favourite food. Okay? What? No, go on. He looks away and seems distressed. I'm sorry, Matt, go on. You didn't even hug me. I haven't seen you. How long? Well, we don't have a relationship either. Here I am after years and you don't even greet me with a hug. The last thing I need to do is hug someone. We sit as Purcell plays. The strings burn through the distance between us. They settle like dust or skin particles and build layers of microscopic clusters that give the space between us some sense of weight. I was angry about homelessness, about private schools, about hedge funds. I nod. I was angry about Palestine, about Jesus, about bombers. I thought I was angry with good reason. I'd go back to my studio, make every painting conceptual, fill it with war and suffering. I had to infuse everything with war, with torment, with suffering. Well, that's no bad thing. He just stares at me as though he is talking to his own memories. I saw Holly's dad in a Turkish bar. A small place, tiny. They have the best to hawk in the east side. And baklava. Baklava is good. Do you remember Mum's? Baklava. I nod. Hail, hail, Cecilia. Love pulls down my spine as I see a volcano erupt. It turns the tumbling, lush landscape to red molten coals. What happened? I said something rude or pathetic. He was a banker, well, sort of. He worked as a consultant, I think, for one of the conglomerates. I said something bitter, probably something vile. I nod. He looked at me like I'd spat at him. Grow up, is what he said. Holly left you because you wouldn't man up. Matthew looks at me and seems to move his head in agreement. I followed him out of the bar, intending to hit him, I think. And for a moment I tried, but he grabbed my forearms in his hands and gripped me tightly. I like you, kid. You've got talent. I liked you. It was like he had me in a straitjacket. You know you're going to have to stop running sooner or later. Matthew swallowed here, and I thought there also. I gripped the mantelpiece as he sunk his head down onto the cold surface in the gap between either side of his arm. You can't run away from Mummy and Daddy forever. Ghosts travel, you know. They got a way of tumbling over oceans, whole continents, through walls. Matthew looked up at me. The choir sprang into full voice. Soul of the world, inspired by thee, the jarring seed of matter did agree. Matthew smiles a sickly smile, and I see him as you, Conrad, or I see you as him, perhaps. I grip the side and long for your touch. Thou didst the scattered atoms bind, which by thy laws of true proportion joins, made up of various parts one perfect harmony. That night I prayed and prayed. I looked up at my atheist brother. He nods. I raise my eyebrows. He itches the back of his neck. I prayed over a takeaway carton for some insight, direction. I even opened Conrad's book. I bite harder on my lip and nod. I read a few bits, chapter or two. A friend once gushed about that book, was shocked in awe that I had a copy, a signed one to boot. I nod. I smile. I shake my head. The dam must break. I lift my hands to my face and hold them to my closed eyes, against my closed eyes. I wipe down the tears with the palm so not to openly outpour. There was one phrase. He talks about strength, about character, strength of character to take on the sorrows of the world, to walk across hot coals or to walk on water, to surrender to something larger. He didn't put it like that. It's just how I remember it. What he seemed to say was that we all needed to grow down into the world. I expel the breath I have been holding in. I saw you, Conrad, standing by the fig tree. You seemed to take a large book from thin air and sit there as though you were performing an opera, exaggerating the motion backwards into the floor. You find the ground. Opening the book, you sing the words. If any earthly music dare, the noble organ may, some angel of the sacred choir, brisk without lightness, without dullness grave. After that I painted the lemon grove. I jolted back into the room, and Matthew sounds louder than an organ. He breathes an inspiration. Did with his breath the pipes inspire on Grandma's and Grandpa's farm. I painted lemons, I painted the landscape. From memory, the details of the bark on the trees, the geckos. I painted the tiny bell tower we could see from the lookout. I painted Dad swimming in the pond, Mum sunbathing in the garden. I painted you in your red coat at Christmas. My fingers are in my eye holes again. I can't stop painting it all now. Every memory is on canvas in oil. I'm obsessed. I was angry at you all, not the other stuff is important, but I was wrong to think. I painted Mum and Dad as ghosts of shadow and light moving as fast as lightning across the Atlantic Ocean.